Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I'm hoping we'll have a few more. What a great way to start 2025. My name is Susan Klein Rothschild. I'm a board member of Together Women Rise, and I'll be moderating the event tonight. Together Women Rise is an organization that's focused on achieving global gender equality. We give grants to organizations. We learn about and advocate for gender equality issues. We build community and huge, meaningful connections with people. Our model is based on collective giving. By harnessing the power of coming together, our contributions are valued and can make a powerful impact. So I want us to have as much time as possible for our speaker. She's very dynamic and the organization's really special tonight. Just want to say a few things before we get started. Please keep yourself on mute. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. After the question and answer period, we will have time to answer as many of your questions as possible. So as things come to you, please do not hesitate to put them into the chat. And there is a closed captioning feature for those who would like to use that on our Zoom. Just go to your Zoom toolbar and click on the captions in your language of choice. Okay, tonight's program. This month, we're focusing on restoring dignity and hope for women in incarceration with Clean Start Africa. Clean Start Africa is a dynamic organization. And before we talk to the founder and the owner of this whole project, what we'd like to do is start a little video and give you a little background as a way to begin. So Wendy's going to start the video for us, and we're all going to be on mute.
I got maliciously arrested, falsely accused, and ended up being wrongfully incarcerated to serve a 1-year sentence for a crime that I hadn't committed, and a sentence that I had to serve with my then 3-month-old daughter. And I handled a fraudulent transaction unknowingly. I wasn't the only one who handled that transaction. It was a couple of us. But unfortunately, using the words of the arresting officer, he told me on the day of my arrest, "You have been handpicked to carry the cross on behalf of the bank for this transaction." Prison is very tough. It breaks you. From the environment where you're sleeping, the language, the food. So for me, because I had my daughter, I was in the cell that had women with their children, and you only have one little toilet, and you use that as the toilet. That's where you bathe, that's where you clean. It takes away any dignity. The little esteem that you had as a woman is just taken away. But the most hurtful part is that your children are watching all this, and this is what they carry for the rest of their lives. Bringing up a child behind bars, whether it's the nutrition, whether it's the environment, we know of prison culture, the prison language, as they begin to learn how to talk, is vulgar language. That child will leave and go into a world that they never had an idea about without their primary caregiver, their mother, and they're separated. So it's hurtful and it really pains. Having a court case is financially draining, it's emotionally draining, physically draining. Let me tell you, knowing that I'm going to court, you've got a lot of fear. If you don't win, then it's not just a loss, you also have to pay the costs you've taken the other party through. So I completed my sentence before we could get to the conclusion of the appeal.
Teresa started an organization for women who were in prison. The organization also provides technical training for the women.
Clean Start Africa is a social enterprise based in Nairobi, Kenya. We deal with women, girls, and children impacted by the criminal justice system. We help formerly imprisoned women reintegrate back into the society with dignity through our reentry programs and economic hubs.
Greetings, my name is Teresa Njoroge, founder, CEO, Clean Start Africa. We're so grateful to be partnering with Together Women Rise, who are funding our Beyond the Bars Sustainable Livelihoods Women Economic Empowerment Project, where they're funding 3 specific economic hubs. 1, the culinary restaurant, 2, the textile, fashion and design, and 3, the green economy, where the women make charcoal briquettes. This investment from Together Women Rise will ensure that the women have decent, sustainable means of livelihood.
My name is Isaac Karanja. I work as a business development manager for Clean Start Africa. The funding that is needed from RISE is to help us empower women in our economic hubs. We do have a various number of hubs that includes textile, culinary hub, the charcoal briquette hub, and the fashion hub. In these hubs, we empower women impacted by the justice system by giving them skills and knowledge so as to become productive members of the society. And as we all know, economic empowerment in our hubs brings about financial independence.
Clean Start Africa has been able to help women reintegrate back into the community successfully through trainings that are offered in self-help groups and loans given through these groups.
My name is Teresa Njoroge. I work at Clean Start Africa. I work at the Department of Economic Empowerment as an assistant. In Economic Empowerment Department, we bring together formerly incarcerated women together for training, whereby we specialize on business development, mentorship, and financial literacy, which enables them to be financially stable. Through these trainings, I've been able to benefit because through them I've been able to have my own farm where I do farming. And in my farm right now, I have the red honor, I have cabbages, I have chilies, and the capsicums, both green, yellow, and red, for local consumption.
Hi, my name is Betty Kaguya. I work at Clean Start as the database officer for the chapters that we are following. I left prison in 2018, and in 2019, I joined the Circles of Healing, whereby through the circle and through Clean Start, we were able to be given a charcoal briquettes machine and started selling the briquettes locally to sustain our daily lives. Later on, I got to start my own business. It's called Kisasa Jikoni and Essentials. Basically, I import households from China. Households you may need in the bedroom, in the kitchen, the living room, the bathroom, basically your household's plug. So in 2023, I was able to get clients from South Sudan, and I'm truly grateful for them because every week, I get to import to my Southern Sudan clients, and this has really helped me to sustain my life. And this would not have been possible if not for Clean Start, who gave me the loan to start my business, and for that I'm truly grateful.
Thank you, Together Women Rise, for believing and investing in women coming out of prisons to rebuild and have sustainable means of livelihood.
Inspiring, isn't that? We are very honored tonight to have Teresa Njoroge as our guest speaker today. Teresa is the founder and CEO of Clean Start Africa. It's a social enterprise dedicated to supporting women who are leaving prison and helping them reintegrate into society. Teresa has been recognized leader in social justice. She's an inaugural Ford Foundation Global Fellow, a TED Woman 2017 speaker, a recipient of multiple prestigious awards, including the 2023 Elevate Prize. Her work continues to drive meaningful change across Kenya and Africa. Teresa, thank you for being here tonight. And let me just remind everyone, please stay on mute. And if you have questions, put them in the chat for us, and we'll get to them as quickly as we can after the presentation. So we've all had a chance to see a little bit of your story, Teresa, but you were wrongfully imprisoned with your baby. Could you tell us a little bit more about how this occurred and how you eventually moved beyond that to create this organization?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Together Women Rise community, it's such a great pleasure and honor to be joining you. I'm delighted to see Miss Beverly Francis Gibson, whom we've already had some wonderful conversations. I'm already feeling like I'm part of family. Thank you. Wow. You know, I had dreams as an African woman from my village, and I wanted to, be this star who would not only be a great provider for my family, but also inspiring others. Soon after university and doing a decade into it, I happened to handle the fraudulent transaction unknowingly, and police walk into the banking hall and they ask for Teresa Njoroge. And I think we're finally going to get to the bottom of what happened. But unfortunately, the police end up arresting me. The following day, I was in the newspapers, bank manager thief. At that point, the arresting officers asked me for 10,000 US dollars as a bribe. And if I gave it to them, they'd release me. People told me that's just how the criminal justice system works. I come from a family where right is right, wrong is wrong, and there's no gray area. And I wasn't going to pay the bribe. I honestly thought I'd get justice, but I was wrongly convicted and sentenced to serve this 1 year behind bars, a sentence I served with my 3-month-old daughter. 3 years later, I was exonerated, but we had already served the time. That's when I formed Clean Start, because while in prison, I met hundreds and hundreds of other women, many there, not because they were criminals, but because they were poor and vulnerable. The criminalization of poverty. I'm grateful that Clean Start now exists to reform the penal code, to end this criminalization of poverty, and to give these hundreds of women coming out of prison a soft landing and livelihood opportunities so they won't end up behind bars again. We offer programs in all 44 women prisons here in Kenya and in all the 47 geographical regions for those coming out. And what a wonderful way to begin 2025 with this support from Together Women Rise, because I can assure you it will make a huge difference to hundreds of women. Thank you very much for journeying alongside us.
Well, I can't even imagine being imprisoned wrongfully with a child for a year, and to turn that into something amazing as you have. The number of girls and women who are imprisoned has grown 60% across the world in the past 25 years. And while men number imprisoned has increased by 22%. So many more people are being imprisoned. And as you were stating, so many of them are wrongly imprisoned. What were you seeing women face as they were being imprisoned in Kenya?
It is a pity that 60+ years post-independence in Kenya, we still have in our statute books laws which are essentially not only pre-independent, but which serve to discriminate and to penalize based on poverty and gender. I'd see women come into prison for very petty things, i.e. loitering. And, loitering based on your address. Women who survived on making our local liquor, in our local language, it's called Muratina. But because of this pre-independent laws that are still in our statute books, these women who are just trying to fend for their families would then be arrested. Unfortunately, most of these women, because of their vulnerability, I tell you, we are punishing women based off their social economic status. They can't afford to pay bail. They can't afford to pay the fines. And therefore, they end up being incarcerated, not because they are a criminal, but because of their social economic status. And therefore, it was so disheartening that I, for one, would afford legal representation. These women, and we've done a research. So one of the areas that CleanStart invests in is the research area, collecting data and having evidence for advocacy purposes. 81% of the women behind bars never heard legal representation because they could never afford it. How could that be just? And I had legal representation. I still ended up being incarcerated, exonerated 3 years later. How much more worse for these women who cannot afford legal representation and cannot afford the bills or even these bribes that they're being asked for? And so that, for me, I wasn't going to turn my back. So as soon as I was exonerated, compensated by the government, which is one of the most rare cases, especially for women in Kenya, I set up CleanStart and I said, we've got to empower these women so that we can end that cycle of in and out of prison due to poverty-related cases. It's criminals who deserve to be behind bars, not the poor.
I can't imagine. So you're talking about people who are wrongly imprisoned, who don't have legal representation, or they're largely because they're poor. So after they're incarcerated, what's it like? What are the challenges when they're trying to re-enter life?
Oh my word, the stigmatization. A woman cannot even begin to own the fact that they have just come out of prison, let alone get any support post the acknowledging that they've just had a very traumatic experience because of the stigmatization. It is regarded as a taboo. It is an abomination to even talk about the incarceration, especially of a woman. It's shameful. They're considered to be bringing embarrassment to the community. They are shunned. Most of them go to completely different locations. And we're talking about very poor and vulnerable women here. So it's not like they have the luxury to move across cities. You know, it's truly, truly difficult for them. Let me give you some context and say that the rates of unemployment, especially for youth, is way above 50%. And that's for people without any criminal record, who have degrees but will never get employment because of the high unemployment rates. So for our constituents, women coming out of prisons, the chances of them ever getting an employment opportunity is out of the options. And most of these are women who never had education opportunities in the first place. You know, it broke my heart going into prison, and I have entered prison with a biased lens because I, as a professional woman coming off the corporate world, thought that those behind bars are those who've committed crimes, only to find out that it's those who've been through all the broken systems of our society, the lack of equal education opportunities, the lack of employment opportunities, the high rates of poverty. And so these statistics, the people behind these statistics at the end of that chasm are the ones who end up behind bars. And so it's the poor, it's the vulnerable, and I can state this categorically without fear of any contradiction. The rich and guilty will not find their way behind bars. They'll pay the bribes and they'll figure out how they will not end up in prison. Behind bars, you'll find 90% poor people, vulnerable people who are paying the heaviest price just because of their social economic standing.
Wow, there are so many barriers and so many challenges to these people who are incarcerated, who are so poor and have so few resources. Tell us a success story. Tell us a story of someone who was in prison who re-entered and was successful.
Oh, thank you. And this is what brings joy, it's so much joy and delight after seeing so much desperation and hopelessness. And, when Clean Start comes in, first and foremost, I must say that we're very peer-led. I had requested some of my sisters on the outside, that's what we call ourselves post-incarceration, to join the call. And if there's anyone who has, please feel free to, share your story. But if there's none at this particular hour here in Kenya, not a problem. I'll talk about Anne. Anne was behind bars for 23 years, almost 2.5 decades. Left her 6-year-old daughter all to herself. Anne went through our programming while she was behind bars, a very peer-led program. And it's such a delight when women who have been formerly incarcerated go back into the very places that would have broken them to offer hope, to offer these training programs. We've got a training program called the Ufunuo program. That's the beginning of the healing journey and telling these women there's a hope, there's a future. You are worthy. And once they're done with the trauma healing and self-confidence and self-esteem building, they then get into the skills training where they train in different skills. There's tailoring, there's the green energy economy where they learn how to make charcoal briquettes, clean cooking stoves, culinary, and so much more. And post-release, Anne now heads our textile, fashion and design textile hub, which is one of the centers that Together Women Rise funding will help us expand to reach many more women. And Anne not only acts a decent, sustainable means of living at this tailoring hub, she also trains other women at this hub as they come out and lead the sales and marketing. But I must say that Natasha, her daughter, now leads our children and girls department, engaging, encouraging, and empowering other children whose mothers have been separated from them, not because their moms are criminals, but because of their social economic status. And it's just beautiful to see the legacy here.
It's very impressive after 20 years being incarcerated. That gives all of us hope. Your program, Clean Start, includes vocational training and entrepreneurship starter kits. And you also have some group and individual therapy sessions. Could you tell us a little bit about those, please?
Indeed. So what we've done, we've set up what we're calling the Clean Start Africa Leadership Academy. That's the first stop when the women come out of prison. And this stop is a fellowship cohort-based training modules that help the women to adjust to life on the outside. So much has changed since they went in. It's also an opportunity for us to begin reconciling and re-establishing those connections with their children after very many years of separation. There's a lot of forgiveness. The children are very hard. Family members don't know how to handle this situation. So it's not just an opportunity for the woman to learn how to readjust to the outside world. It's also an opportunity to establish these connections once again on the outside at the Clean Start Leadership Africa Academy. Now, once she's done with that, we continue holding her hand, and she has options. She can choose which hub to join because she will never find employment. She will never find capital to start a business. Clean Start has set up economic empowerment hubs. She could either join a textile hub, a culinary hub, a hair and dressing hub, the green energy economy hub. She could join the sales and marketing team, depending on her skills, her area of interest, she's got a choice. And we align our hubs based off what they're training while they're still in prison. So it won't be such a difficult start. We also have geographical centered circles, which we call chapters. These are small groups of up to 20 formerly incarcerated women. Magic happens in these small groups. The woman finds other women who've gone ahead on this journey. They meet once a month, and this woman shares what are her difficulties. How is she handling the stigma? How is she handling the difficulties of rebuilding her relationship with her family and her children? The step-by-step journey of rebuilding her life. She's got this circle of community, of sisterhood, of togetherness, people who care about her. And I must say, before Clean Start, women would commit suicide, literally. Children would pass away because there was no soft landing. But because of these small geographical circles, the chapters across the country, the women have spaces where they are able to stand strong again post-incarceration.
It's a very extensive program, as we can hear. You start working with the women and their families, and you give them options and choices for their vocational training and help them move forward. A lot of what you've talked about are some of the societal issues and the legal practices in Kenya. Tell us what you'd like to see happen and change in those areas.
Indeed. First and foremost, I must say that Together Women Rise is one of the very rare organizations, because this space is not given the due attention that is deserved, that it deserves, And we want to keep our advocacy in the minds of decision makers, policy makers, other funders, because it's not just the women who need a clean start. Kenya needs a clean start when it comes to our laws. We need to detach from the colonial era laws, which are long gone and no longer needed in a post-independent Kenya. Yeah. And besides seeing to it that we change these laws, I want to see to it that they are completely deleted from our statute laws. So I am engaging policymakers, I am engaging the legislators, I am engaging funders to help in that pursuit. Because as soon as we delete those laws, there is no way women will be arrested for petty minor demeanors. On the other hand, I want to see to it that we do not address poverty with a criminal justice lens. Poverty deserves compassion and empathy. It deserves empowerment, not a criminal justice lens. I want to see to it that these women, not just in Kenya, but across the African continent, and indeed the globe, the poor and vulnerable are treated with empathy, compassion, and are offered sustainable, decent means of livelihood, that there are opportunities for them. For when you have an opportunity to build your life, you've got your esteem, you've got your confidence, you can provide for yourself and you can provide for your children. And that provides generational impact, generational change. I was given opportunities, great education opportunities. I got into the banking and finance world and was earning well. And even though I went through such a difficult point in time and experience, I've been able to bounce back and support many others because of the foundational support that I got. And I want to see to it that other girls get the kind of education that I got. And that's why we offer the scholarships and are going to continue to offer the educational scholarships to as many girls as possible on the African continent. Thank you.
That's wonderful. I love what you just said. We don't want to address poverty within the criminal justice lens. That's true everywhere. We really have a lot to learn in that regard. You could you give us a sense of the numbers? How many women you're able to serve, and how many women are incarcerated? What's the need?
So we've already addressed and supported over 4,500 women. We're almost getting to 5,000 women as we speak across the Kenyan geographical area. We've got a few in Cape Town and Tanzania and Uganda who've been through our programming, but very soon we'll be approaching the 5,000 number. On any given day, you will find 10,000 women going through the criminal justice system. And they go through anything from 3 months, 6 months, a year to life incarceration. So any given day, 10,000 women are revolving through that system, either are being arrested, going through the court cases, or are already incarcerated, and others coming out. At any given point, in any given day, we've got close to 300 women being released from incarceration. Unfortunately, the need is so high that at the moment, Clean Start is not able to support all the women, but we continue to put in our best foot forward, recruit as many more peer women who've been through the system and been through our programming and are now empowered to continue supporting. Because when you've got close to 100,000 women who, in a year, who are in the wait list to join your program, it's a bit overwhelming for a startup organization that doesn't have government support yet. But you know, with the fund, so we're always fundraising. And with the funding that we're getting, always trying to get to the women. And I must bring in the children aspect. Note this, 90% of the women I'm talking about are the sole caregiver of their families. 90% are mothers and the sole caregiver of their families. When this woman is taken behind bars, she's leaving behind 2 to 3 children. And according to our research, these children are under the age of 10 years. I'll share this research, this study that we did, and you can get more details about these statistics. Below 10 years, and what happens immediately mom goes behind bars, even if it's for one day, those children are left without any caregiver because we do not have a social system, social service system that cares for those children. Those children are at risk of abuse the very night mom went behind bars. Mom was trying to fend for these children, so no one's bringing them any provisions. They'll definitely drop out of school and will be kicked out of that house very soon. So it's the trickle effect and the dire impact of this. It's urgent. It's urgent. Our work is urgent.
We feel your urgency. We hear the numbers, we feel your passion, and there are so many questions from our guests today. I would like to begin to put out some of the questions. So if you have additional questions, please put them in chat. Wendy's going to help bring up some of the questions you've already put forward. Teresa, you're so inspiring, and we're so happy you're here. Wendy?
Thank
So Teresa, you talk about how the need is so great. How do you then decide who you're going to help first? How do you, allocate your resources that you have? Is there a criteria that you use to accept the women into your programs?
Indeed, that's a great question. And the only way to be able to know how to give the resources at hand and time. And, when I talk about resources, it's not just the cash, it's also the capacity of Clean Start and the time that we have at hand. That's limited at the moment. So when we go into these correctional institutions, there is a sieving process that we have to go through to know, at any given point, there are 20 women in each prison going through our program. And our program has 3 tiers. So first and foremost, they'll need to put in an application. And we have a team going through the application letters. You've got to show commitment, and not commitment for just phase 1 of this journey. You've got to commit to journey with us all the way to our movement on the outside, and to commit that post-incarceration, and once you're successful and independent, you will offer of your time as well to another woman and another sister who needs that training and that opportunity. So, and it's a lot of questions that we go through. We're looking at how many children, the age of the children, the situation at hand, but most importantly, 70% is the commitment of the woman to the program. So once we've gone through the application letters, we then go through some individual interviews, and we select the top 20 who make that cohort. Even though you won't be selected for that, for the cohort of the 20, this process is still ongoing. So you could always apply as many times as possible until you're able to be selected and get into the cohort. Upon graduation of the first tier, you then can join the advanced level, which is a lot more to do with leadership. And then there's a master's level, and all these 3 tiers happen while you're still behind bars. And once you get the master's level graduation certificate, upon your release, when you now come on the outside to the Clean Start Africa Leadership Academy, you are considered a leader, and there's a lot more benefits for you because of the effort you put in while you were still incarcerated. So, it's effort-based. The more effort you show, the higher up you get in terms of the support that you have and getting leadership positions, which also comes with added benefits of earning an income as you maybe become the leader of the chapter, or you're employed to be in charge and a supervisor at one of the hubs, so. And I must also say that 80% of the staff at Clean Start are formerly incarcerated women. So we are also offering them career paths of opportunities, and they're able to begin building their CVs as office administrators, office assistants, and so on and so forth. So that's how it works. Yeah.
So once again, with all the need that there is, do you have Kenyan contributors in Kenya who are supporting your efforts, like corporate, communities, individual level? And are you working with government at all?
I must admit that it wasn't easy in the beginning. I had to literally create the awareness of why the corporates had to lean in and support this demographic. They were unseen, invisible, unheard, and ostracized. Most people thought they deserve their status because they're criminals. But I had to do a lot of advocacy to create the awareness that these are those who never got the opportunity of education, of employment, and so on and so forth. And over the last couple of years, we have seen tremendous change. corporates have leaned in. The bank I worked for example, is a great supporter of our work. These corporates are not only offering cash, they are also offering mentors, trainers, coaches. They have truly leaned in. And it's not just that kind of support we need. We need other support such as clothing and other welfare needs, health support, housing support, legal representation support. We're getting all this pro bono. Now, the most incredible change that we have seen is from the government, and especially the criminal justice sector. In December 2023, close to 50 women were released from the largest correctional facility for women when the criminal justice actors got to hear of what Clean Start is doing. And from that point onwards, the women with petty offenses, misdemeanors, are not now put into prison. Why? There is the Clean Start program. We are in the process of continuing this partnership to see to it that women who commit petty offenses, i.e. selling their wares in the streets without a license, or arrested loitering and other petty misdemeanors, instead of being taken into a courtroom, they are committed to take the Clean Start program on the outside. That's the ultimate dream. If and when, let me not use the word if, when we get this approval, 70% of those prisons will not have the poor and the vulnerable. It's the right women who need correction, who are a danger to society, that will be behind bars for correctional purposes, and the officers will be able to do their work well. And we can deal with the poor women and the vulnerable women on the outside, empowering one by one without having them separated from their lovely children. That's the dream.
That is incredible. The way you are dealing with, sort of reacting to when women come out of prison, you need to help them rebuild their lives, but you're also trying to address the root causes of this and preventing the women from getting into prison in the first place. And then going right back to the fact that, a lot of these women aren't educated, and, this leads them to create these petty offenses that you say. So, wow, you're hitting it from all directions. One of the things that people were wondering about, to create change, there also needs to be policymakers, right? Are there very many women in government in Kenya that are able to maybe help make these changes?
So one of the reasons why Clean Start has made such great strides over the last few years is because for the very first time, we've got the first woman Chief Justice in the country. And she understands exactly what Clean Start is doing and why Clean Start exists. And that's why we're receiving so much support, because we've got allyship from the highest office within the criminal justice system. The first woman police spokeswoman, now. So we've the first attorney general in Kenya as a woman has just recently been appointed. And so we've got very many women in the very recent couple of years that are coming into positions of decision making. That is why, for the very first time, 60 years plus post-independence, we have a bill in Parliament. Once this bill becomes law, the petty offenses in our penal code will be deleted. And this is because of the women in high positions of power who have been allies to see to it that this happens. This is the highest we've gone in terms of changing the laws and policy making. I must also say that in 2022, we launched the first policy on how to handle children of incarcerated parents. We're making great strides step by step, slow but sure.
Wow, that's incredible. Few other questions I think we have time for. So someone was asking about your one of your economic opportunities that you provide has to do with charcoal briquettes. And they were wondering how that contributes to the green economy. Isn't charcoal a rather dirty fuel?
Now, that's a very good question. I'm glad that they've asked that question. So the green energy economy is 100% towards being environment friendly and seeing to it that, we are aligning with climate justice. So the charcoal briquettes are made by using recycled material. What we do is we go, all over the country, and we've got all these women who are collecting recyclable material, whatever, stuff that we could be able to recycle. They then treat that recycle at the plant. They recycle that material, and it is out of that dirt. I just can't wait. I could share a video, but I'm telling you, watching the process. And for some of you who are in Kenya, I invite you to visit us to see this work, because it's not only life-transforming work, it's just incredible in how the women are thinking about the environment, climate justice, and to see them do this work is just so incredible. So they recycle this stuff that some of the women have collected from across the country in just so many kilos of recyclable material. And then they use that, and it's treated and compressed into what now makes the charcoal briquettes. So it's very environment friendly, and it is actually a solution to climate justice.
Yeah, because women are the ones finding the solutions to the climate issues. They're often the ones most impacted, but they're also finding the solutions. Question about women in prison. Do they get medical care, dental care, mental health? Do they even get their bedding, clothing, food, basic needs in the prison? No.
It breaks my heart to say that this is one of our greatest pain points: health. It's a huge pain point. We are in partnership with government, the Ministry of Health, and other health solution providers. But I must say that we've got a long way to go. We're hopeful, but it's a huge pain point. And the reason why I say that is because we're losing lives. We're losing lives. We're losing lives.
While they're in prison. Yeah.
And out, both in and out.
Yeah. So no basic needs, healthcare needs being met in prison, but it's also very hard for them to access it when they're out of prison. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Couple questions about are there many cases where the men might be guilty of a certain offense, but it's the woman that gets charged instead?
Who asked that question? My goodness. Oh my word. You got the words and our experience right into that question. Unbelievable. I just couldn't believe when I got into prison how many women I met who were in prison as victims of their lovers, of their husbands, of their sibling brothers, because of patriarchy, when it comes to inheritance issues, It was only in 2010 when Kenya gained it, when Kenya got its very progressive constitution, which we borrowed heavily from the American Constitution. And it's, you know, this Kenyan Constitution, 2010 Constitution, is one of the most progressive that we have, when women, for the very first time, could own things like land in their own name and not use their father or their husband, you know. So, my goodness. Oh, yes, the answer is yes. And I could go on and on around this issue on patriarchy and how it manifests in so many ways, so many tires for different women in their different social economic class status and classes. It's unbelievable. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to come back to your own personal story to kind of wrap up. And one of the earliest questions we had in the chat was, you know, you talked about the fact that you were exonerated and you did receive compensation. And we'd like to hear a little bit more about how you were able to get compensation from the government, or, you know, wherever you got it from. What was that process like?
You know, this was, and unfortunately, I must say, continues to be one of the most rare cases where, you know, you've not only stood up to arresting officers as a woman and said, no, I am not paying you the bribe, and paying the price to go behind bars for a whole year for refusing to pay the bribe.
Yeah.
And continuing to stand up to say, I am innocent. And at the Court of Appeal, the judges had to listen and relook into this case. And indeed, they concluded, we do not find you guilty at all. You had a wrongful incarceration. You did not steal the funds. You did not conspire with anyone to defraud the bank. And there have been very many gaps in this case. And so there was no evidence whatsoever. And so the Courts of Appeal cleared me. Post clearing me, I went to the next court, which is the civil court, to now challenge for the compensation of the damage. And I must say that there never will be an amount equal to the experience of being to a woman Kenyan prison. No compensation whatsoever can be equal to that, and especially with your infant daughter, because those prisons, the infrastructure, the kind of treatment that you get, the trauma you leave that place with, and health conditions just because of being in that state. It's a lifetime price that you pay, including your children paying that price with you, you know, because their mother, you know, is referred to as the one who was incarcerated, which has the criminal connotation. So you continue to pay this price as a family, you know, with all the stigma before you can explain what happened. You know, it's such a heavy price. And it was at the civil court. And I must say that were it not for my father standing with me through this, from the day of arrest, throughout prosecution, throughout incarceration, throughout my appeal, and into the civil case to fight for my compensation, I must admit, I would never have gotten compensation. A man in this community plays a big role. Unfortunately, a lot of men do not stand with their women, do not stand with their daughters, because they will also be ostracized, you know, in such a patriarchy society. But my dad stood with me through it all. He told me, I believe you're innocent. I believe in you, and I will support you throughout this process. And he supported me, and post my getting compensation, I got compensation from the Office of the Attorney General. I got compensation, a very rare occurrence, And post that compensation by the Office of the Attorney General of Kenya, my father continued to support me when I say to him, I want to start an organization that supports other women like me who will never get the kind of justice that I have achieved. And he said, whatever it takes, I will support you to set up that organization. And, you know, I'm very grateful. And it's my sincere hope that through Clean Start, the very many women who do not have a father who can stand with them, a man who will ever stand with them, in their own right, will be able to find justice in their own way and be able to independently stand on their own and provide for themselves, their children, and their families. That's the hope.
Teresa,
Sounds like we
you are an
need-
inspiring leader. You really have inspired us tonight, and we are proud as Together Women Rise to support your organization. It's tremendous. Really, I have no words to describe how I think most of us feel tonight. I do want to make a couple comments before we end. Our first book club event for 2025 will be on February 12th. And that'll be at noon Eastern Time and 9 Pacific Time. We'll feature the book Play Like a Girl, How a Soccer Girl in Kenya's Slums Started a Revolution by Ali Rasher. We're offering 3 trips in 2025. The Dominican Republic trip in March is full, but there are spaces in the trip to both Rwanda and Indonesia. And there's a lot more information on our website. You can see, and I know you're all here because you believe there's a real impact here. And Teresa, you've let us know that that happens. Thank you all for participating. And if any of you are motivated to donate, please see our website and contribute. Thank you all for joining us tonight.